Fine. Let's start. Number 10. Days away, and nobody's talking. There is a dead rocket falling toward the moon right now, and in a few days it is going to hit. Not might. Not could, under the wrong circumstances, someday. It is going to happen. The date is August 5th, 2026. The clock is already running, and by the time most people hear about it, there will already be a fresh scar on the moon that wasn't there this morning. And here's the part that gets me. We know this. We have known it for weeks. There are papers about it. There are astronomers planning their nights around it. Somebody has already worked out, to the minute, when a 4,000-kilogram piece of human machinery is going to slam into another world at over 5,000 miles an hour. And the whole thing has landed in the news with roughly the energy of a shrug. Think about how strange that is. If a rock the size of a car were about to hit a city, it would be wall-to-wall coverage. Sirens. Countdowns. Somebody standing in front of a green screen pointing at a map. But this is a piece of a rocket, one of ours, on a collision course with the one object in the sky that every human being who has ever lived has looked up at. And it's a footnote. We are right now in the quiet hours before something genuinely rare. The kind of thing that used to happen only by accident, in the dark, with nobody watching. Except this time we saw it coming. This time we get to watch the countdown. Nobody's talking about it. So let's talk about it. Number 9. The launch that left something behind. To understand what's about to hit the moon, you have to go back to a launch that everybody actually did cheer for. January 15th, 2025. 1 in the morning, Florida time. A Falcon 9 lifts off from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center, the same historic pad that sent Apollo crews toward the moon. And riding on top of it on the same rocket are 2 robotic moon landers built by 2 different companies on 2 different sides of the planet. One is Blue Ghost, built by an American company called Firefly Aerospace, headed for a broad, dark plain on the moon called Mare Crisium. The other is a Japanese lander called Resilience, built by a company called iSpace, taking the slow, scenic, fuel-sipping route out to the moon. 2 landers, 1 rocket, a genuine moment for the whole idea of private companies going to the moon. Blue Ghost would go on to touch down softly that March. This was a good night. A proud night. But here's the thing about getting to the moon. Once the rocket has done the hard work of flinging its payloads out toward deep space, there's a leftover piece. The upper stage. The big second segment of the rocket that does the final push. And when its job is done, it's just there. Empty. Coasting. A spent metal tube the length of a bus, tumbling through space with no crew, no cameras, and no more reason to exist. On most launches close to Earth, that leftover stage gets steered back down into the atmosphere, where it burns up over an ocean, and nobody thinks about it again. That's the polite thing to do. That's cleaning up after yourself. This one didn't get cleaned up. The party moved on to the landers, the way it always does. And out in the dark, the part nobody was cheering for just kept going. Number 8. 4 tons. No way home. Here's the uncomfortable little secret of that launch. The rocket stage that's about to hit the moon didn't break. It didn't fail. It did its job perfectly, and that is exactly why it's now a problem. When you send something on a low-energy path all the way out to the moon, you burn nearly everything you've got. And by the time this upper stage had finished flinging its landers on their way, it had almost no propellant left. Not enough to turn around and dive back into Earth's atmosphere to burn up safely. Not enough to steer itself down onto the moon in a controlled way either. It was stuck in between. Too far out to come home. Not aimed at anything in particular. Just loose. So it drifted into a big, stretched out, looping orbit that reached past the moon and back, over and over. And out there, its path stopped being simple. The Earth pulls on it. The moon pulls on it. Even the sun gets a vote. Every time it swung around, those forces nudged it. A little here, a little there. And slowly, across months, all those tiny nudges added up and bent its path into a line that no longer loops safely past the moon. It now ends at the moon. Somewhere in a catalog, this object got a name. Not a heroic one. 2025-010D. A serial number. That's it. 4,000 kilograms of metal, about 12 meters long, and the only label it carries is a filing code. That's the part that should sit with you. This wasn't a disaster. Nothing exploded. No alarm went off. A machine simply finished its work, ran out of fuel exactly as expected, and was quietly left to wander until gravity did the math and pointed it at the moon. The crash isn't a malfunction. The crash is just what happens when nobody's job is to bring it back. Number 7. The one man watching. So who noticed? Who looked at a nameless, spent rocket stage, one lost object among thousands, and worked out that it was going to hit the moon? Not NASA. Not a government tracking network with a building full of screens. A man named Bill Gray. Bill Gray writes software. Specifically, he wrote a program that astronomers, both the professionals and the serious amateurs, use to calculate where objects are and where they're going, out among the asteroids and the comets, and, as it turns out, the wandering junk. He runs a small operation called Project Pluto. And he's the kind of person who says, with a straight face, that even though astronomy is basically his life's work, he's a little reluctant to call himself a professional astronomer, because he never got the PhD. Sit with that for a second. The reason we know in advance that a rocket is going to strike the moon is that one guy running his own software from his own desk did the arithmetic that apparently nobody with an official mandate was doing. And this isn't his first time. Bill Gray is the same person who a few years back spotted the last object that hit the moon by accident. He called that one too. He tracked it. He predicted where and when it would come down. And when new information showed his first guess about which rocket it was had been wrong, he said so, in public, and corrected it. That's how actual science sounds. Not certainty. Honesty, updated when the numbers change. But there's something a little lonely in this picture, isn't there? We have entire agencies that watch the sky for asteroids that might threaten Earth. We track tens of thousands of pieces of debris in orbit close to home. And yet, the story of a rocket hitting the moon comes down to one careful man and his homemade tools, quietly raising his hand and saying, "This is going to happen. Here's when." The universe is enormous. And sometimes the only person looking in exactly the right direction is a guy at a desk who won't even take credit for the title. Number 6. A named crater, a named minute. Here's where it stops feeling abstract and starts feeling almost unnervingly specific. We don't just know that the rocket is going to hit the moon. We know when. We know where. Impact is expected around 6:35 in the morning, Universal Time, on August 5th. And the spot has a name. It's near a crater called Einstein, sitting right out on the western edge of the moon as we see it from Earth, near the point where the round face of the moon curves away into shadow. Let that land. A collision on another world, 250,000 miles away, and we can tell you the minute and the neighborhood. We can point at the map and say, there, in that crater's backyard, at about that time, a piece of a rocket is going to come down out of the black at an angle, moving roughly 5,400 miles an hour. 5,400 miles an hour. On Earth, that's the kind of speed we can barely wrap our heads around. But there's no air on the moon to slow anything down. No atmosphere to burn it up. No wind to push it off course. No friction to bleed away the speed. So it doesn't get a fiery, dramatic entrance streaking across the sky. It just falls silently gaining speed the whole way, and arrives at full velocity. The moon has no way to soften the blow. It never has. And the angle matters too. This isn't coming straight down. It's coming in tilted, about 34 degrees off of vertical, more of a steep dive than a vertical drop, which changes the shape of what it leaves behind. The way a stone skipped at an angle throws water differently than one dropped flat. We have turned a runaway piece of trash into an appointment, a scheduled event with a location and a time, written down and shared, waiting for the clock to run out. The strange thing isn't that we can predict it. The strange thing is how calm the prediction feels, like a train timetable for the end of a small piece of the moon. Number 5. 3 tons of TNT from dead metal. So what actually happens in that final second? Let's stand at the crater and watch it come down. Not that you'd want to. 4,000 kilograms of metal, moving at about 2.43 kilometers every single second. That's the number. 2.5 kilometers, gone, in the time it takes to say the word second. When something that heavy meets solid rock at that speed, the energy it carries has to go somewhere, and it goes everywhere at once. The estimates put the punch of this impact at somewhere around 3 tons of TNT, from a hollow, empty rocket stage. It doesn't need to be carrying a bomb. The speed is the bomb. All of that motion converts, in an instant, into heat and shock and shattered stone. The stage itself doesn't survive in any recognizable form. It crumples. It vaporizes. It's gone. And where it hits, it digs out a fresh crater. The careful estimates land somewhere between about 17 meters and 30 meters across, depending on exactly how a thin-walled metal tube behaves when it hits, which is genuinely hard to predict. Call it, at minimum, the size of a large house, punched into the moon in less time than a blink. And then comes the part that would actually be beautiful, if you could see it. The impact throws up a plume, a great fountain of pulverized moondust and debris, blasted up and out from the point of contact, rising kilometers above the surface. On a world with no air, that dust doesn't billow and settle like smoke. It arcs. Every particle flies on its own clean, silent, curving path, following pure physics, before falling back down across the gray landscape. Some of that flung material could travel a long way. Modeling suggests the farthest flying pieces could land the better part of 1,000 kilometers from the crater. Think about that reach. A single crash, and the debris rains down across a stretch of moon wider than some countries. For one bright, silent instant, a corner of the moon lights up and throws a piece of itself at the stars. And then it goes still again, the way it has after every impact for 4 billion years. Number 4. A violent event in near silence. Now here's the twist that really gets under my skin. All of this. The countdown, the crater, the plume, the 3 tons of TNT. And there's a real chance almost nobody sees it happen. You'd think that would be impossible. We know the minute. We know the place. Oh, surely someone just points the biggest telescope in the world at that crater and hits record, right? It's not that simple. The impact is happening right out on the edge of the moon's visible face, on that curved limb where the surface tilts away from us. It's in sunlight, which helps. But that grazing, sideways angle makes it a genuinely awkward target from Earth. Some astronomers think the flash might be catchable from the ground, or from telescopes in space. Others think it most likely won't be visible from Earth at all, and that disagreement is real. This isn't settled. The honest answer, right now, days before it happens, is that we're not sure anyone will actually catch the moment of impact. And out at the moon itself? There's no guarantee a spacecraft is in the right spot at the right instant to look down and film it either. We might get before and after pictures, We might send an orbiter around later to hunt for the fresh crater. Compare the new photos to the old ones and go, there. That dark little pockmark. That wasn't there before. That's how we confirmed the last one. Not by watching it, by finding the wound afterward. That is the part that stays with me. We are a species that can predict, to the minute, a collision on another world. And we might still miss it. It could happen exactly on schedule, exactly where we said, a real and violent event, and pass in total silence with not one human eye or lens turned toward it. The moon has been getting hit for billions of years with nobody watching. And here, at the one moment we saw it coming, we might still look away at the wrong second. Something is going to happen up there. Whether we witness it is a different question entirely. Number 3. The crash scientists secretly want. Here's the part nobody says out loud at first. As embarrassing as it is to admit that we lost a rocket and it's about to deface the moon, there's a small crowd of scientists who are, quietly, thrilled about this. Because think about what they're getting. Almost everything that hits the moon is a mystery. A random asteroid, unknown size, unknown speed, unknown made of what, arriving without warning. You can't plan around that. But this is different. This is a known object. We know roughly how much it weighs. We know how fast it's going. We know the angle. We know near enough the spot. It's about as close to a controlled experiment as you can get without meaning to run one. And a controlled impact is a gift, because you can use it to check your homework. One of the big goals here is to test how precisely scientists can pin down exactly where something hits the moon, just from the signals the impact gives off. That might sound dry, but it's the groundwork for something huge. If we want to put instruments on the moon someday that listen for moonquakes and impacts, a network of little seismic stations feeling the moon shiver, we need to know how accurately we can locate the source of a shudder. A crash, where we already know the answer, lets us grade the method. Did our tools point at the right crater? By how much were they off? There's more. Study the plume, the flung debris, the fresh crater, and you learn about the ground it hit. What the surface is made of there. How it breaks. How far the pieces fly. And that last one isn't just curiosity. Remember, some of that debris could travel close to 1,000 kilometers. If we're going to put people and habitats and equipment on the moon, it is genuinely useful to know that a single impact way over the horizon could sling material most of the way to your front door. A group of researchers even put out a paper, days before the event, basically calling on everyone with a telescope, professionals and backyard astronomers alike, to try to observe it, to not waste it. So there's this odd double feeling to the whole thing. On one hand, it's litter. Careless, avoidable litter, hitting a world we claim to revere. On the other hand, it's a free lesson, and the same scientists shaking their heads at the mess are also, quietly, getting their instruments ready. Sometimes the mistake and the discovery are the exact same event. Number 2. It happened before, and we bungled it. If this were the first time a piece of human junk had ever hit the moon by accident, that would be one thing. A freak event. A one-off. But it isn't the first time. And the story of the last time is honestly a little embarrassing for all of us. Rewind to March 4th, 2022. Another abandoned rocket stage, tracked under another cold little catalog code, came down on the far side of the moon, the side that always faces away from Earth. It was, as far as we know, the first time we ever accidentally hit the moon with our own leftover hardware. And the same man, Bill Gray, was the one who saw it coming. But here's where it turns into a comedy of errors. At first, the object was thought to be a spent SpaceX rocket stage, a leftover from a mission launched years earlier. That was the story that went around the world. A SpaceX rocket is going to hit the moon. Except, as Gray kept digging, the numbers stopped fitting. He went back, checked again, and publicly said, "Actually, I got the identity wrong. This isn't the SpaceX stage." The evidence pointed instead to a booster from a Chinese moon mission launched back in 2014. And how did China respond? They denied it. Officials said, in effect, that rocket of ours already came back down and burned up in Earth's atmosphere years ago, so it can't be ours. But independent analysis, tracking the object's path and even studying the way sunlight reflected off it during earlier passes by Earth, kept pointing the same direction. The best evidence says it was the Chinese booster, which leaves us with a truly strange situation. A piece of hardware hit the moon, and the country whose rocket it almost certainly was said, "That's not ours." And then it gets stranger. When NASA's orbiter went and photographed the impact site, it didn't find one crater. It found two. Two craters, overlapping, side by side, like a figure 8 punched into the ground. A normal spent rocket stage is basically a big empty can, heavy on one end where the engine is, light and hollow everywhere else. That kind of object makes one crater. Two craters means there was a second heavy mass on the far end, something nobody has ever accounted for or admitted was there. So let's total it up. An accidental impact on unclaimed junk, carrying an undisclosed second object nobody will explain, leaving a double scar on the far side of the moon where almost nobody could see it. We couldn't even agree on whose it was after it hit. That's the track record we're bringing into this next one. Number 1. Nobody owns the sky between here and the moon. So step all the way back and look at the shape of the whole thing. We have a rocket about to hit the moon. We only know because one man with his own software did the math. We're not certain anyone will see it. It's the second time this has happened, and last time we couldn't even identify the object or explain the extra crater it left. And underneath all of it sits a fact that almost nobody talks about, the fact that actually ties this whole story together. Nobody is in charge out there. Close to Earth, we at least try. We track tens of thousands of pieces of debris in orbit. There are rules. There are catalogs. There are people whose entire job is watching the junk. It's imperfect and crowded and worrying, but somebody is paying attention. Out beyond that, in the vast stretch of space between the Earth and the Moon, the region we grandly call cislunar space, there is almost nothing. No traffic law. No requirement to track your leftover stages once they wander far enough out. No rule that says you have to bring your junk home, or even keep an eye on it. The Great Foundational Space Treaty was written in 1967, back when the idea of our own garbage cluttering the road to the moon was pure science fiction. It simply doesn't address this. There's a later agreement that says you should register your objects with the United Nations, but nothing that says you have to clean them up, or steer them, or answer for where they end up. So the hardware just accumulates. Dead stages, spent boosters, exhausted probes, all of it drifting on long, looping paths through the exact space we are now trying to fill, with landers and crews and stations. And every so often, gravity does its slow arithmetic, and one of those forgotten pieces stops looping and starts falling toward the moon, toward the one place we're all suddenly racing to get to. And here's the detail that should really stick with you. The same astronomer flagged the same kind of problem years ago, with a different derelict stage, from a different mission. He raised his hand then. He's raising it now. The story hasn't changed. Only the serial number on the rocket has. We keep making the same object, over and over, and setting it loose, and hoping someone happens to be watching when it comes down. For all of human history, the craters on the moon were written by the universe, by asteroids and comets, by the raw violence of a solar system settling into place. You could look up at that pockmarked face and read 4 billion years of cosmic history in it. And now, in the next few days, we add a line of our own. A little crater near Einstein, punched by a rocket we forgot to bring home, on a world we haven't even walked on in 50 years. We are learning to leave marks on other worlds before we've learned to keep track of what we throw. The moon is about to get one more scar, and this one has our fingerprints on it. The only real question left is whether, next time, we'll be paying enough attention to say, out loud and in advance, that's ours, and we knew, and we let it fall anyway. Look up in a few days. Something small and permanent is about to change up there, and almost nobody will have noticed. Thank you for watching and sticking till the end. We've got plenty more videos coming in the future. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss them. See you in the next one.